Welcome to Dark Dreams.
I say every house in America should have an electric chair. And every man just once in his life should sit in it, just so that he can feel the power of millions of gallons of electricity flow through his veins. I got an electric chair, that's all I need. You get an electric chair, Sheldon, you don't have to worry about the audience. You get an electric chair, you can tell them anything you want, as long as it's real. You get yourself an electric chair and they'll sit there all night long. Kind of a funny idea, sitting in an electric chair and doing a show. Well, think of the therapeutic value of an electric chair and all the money it is. Yes, sir. An electric chair in every home.
The Electric Chair, a show about horror. ElectricChairShow.com.
An electric chair. Wow.
Tonight, Parallel Lines by Tim Powers. Along with James Blaylock and K.W. Jeter, American science fiction and fantasy author Tim Powers is one of the founding members of steampunk. He has written several novels beginning with The Drawing of the Dark, but considers his Philip K. Dick Award-winning novel, The Animus Gates, his breakthrough book. After the release of the movie Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick re-released the novel on which it was based, changing the original title to Android's Dream of Electric Sheep to Blade Runner, and dedicating it to Tim and his wife Serena. According to Wikipedia, most of Tim Powers' novels are secret histories. He uses actual, documented historical events featuring famous people, but shows another view of them in which occult or supernatural factors influence the motivations and actions of the characters. He has won the World Fantasy Award for his critically acclaimed novels Last Call and Declare. Tim Powers is writer-in-residence at the Orange County High School of the Arts and Chapman University, where he teaches part-time. He has also taught part-time at the University of Redlands, and is frequently a mentor-author for the Clarion Science Fiction Fantasy Writers Workshop. Parallel Lines is copyrighted 2010 by Tim Powers. We give him our sincere thanks and appreciation for the one-time borrowing rights of his story.
Parallel Lines by Tim Powers. It should have been their birthday today. Well, it was still hers, Caroline supposed, but with BV gone, the whole idea of birthday seemed to have gone too. Could she be 73 on her own? Caroline's right hand had been twitching intermittently since she'd sat up in the living room day bed 5 minutes ago, and she lifted the coffee cup with her left hand. The coffee was hot enough, but had no taste, and the living room furniture, the coffee table, the now useless analog TV set with its forlorn rabbit ears antenna, the rocking chair beside the white brick fireplace, all bright in the sunlight glaring through the east window at her back, looked like arranged items in some kind of museum diorama, no further motion possible. But there was still the gravestone to be dealt with. These disorganized 9 weeks later. $450 for 2 square feet of etched granite, and the company in Nevada could not get it straight that Beverly Victoria Ehrlich and Caroline Ann Ehrlich both had the same birth date, though the second date under Caroline's name was to be left blank for some indeterminate period. BV's second date had not been left to chance. BV had swallowed all the Darvocets and Vicodins in the house when the pain of her cancer, if it had been cancer, had become more than she could bear. For a year or so she had always been in some degree of pain. Caroline remembered how BV had exhaled a fast "whew" from time to time, and the way her forehead seemed always to be misted with sweat, and her late-acquired habit of repeatedly licking the inner edge of her upper lip, and she had always been shifting her position when she drove, and bracing herself against the floor or the steering wheel. More and more she had come to rely, both of them had come to rely, on poor dumpy Amber, the teenager who lived next door. The girl came over to clean the house and fetch groceries, and seemed grateful for the $5 an hour, even with BV's generous criticisms of every job Amber did. But Amber would not be able to deal with the headstone company. Caroline shifted forward on the daybed, rocked her head back and forth to make sure she was wearing her reading glasses rather than her bifocals, and flipped open the brown plastic phone book. A short silver pencil was secured by a plastic loop in the book's gutter, and she fumbled it free. And her right hand twitched forward, knocking the coffee cup right off the table, and the pencil shook in her spotty old fingers as its point jiggled across the page. She threw a fearful, guilty glance toward the kitchen in the moment before she remembered that BV was dead. Then she allowed herself to relax, and she looked at the squiggle she had drawn across the old addresses and phone numbers. It was jagged, but recognizably cursive writing. Letters. "I need your help, please." It was, in fact, recognizably BV's handwriting. Her hand twitched again and scrawled the same cramped sequence of letters across the page. She lifted the pencil, postponing all thought in this frozen moment, and after several seconds her hand spasmed once more, no doubt writing the same letters in the air. Her whole body shivered with a feverish chill, and she thought she was going to vomit. She leaned out over the rug, but the queasiness passed. She was sure that her hand had been writing this message in air ever since she had awakened. Caroline didn't think BV had ever before, except with ironic emphasis, said please when asking her for something. She was remotely glad that she was sitting, for her heart thudded alarmingly in her chest, and she was dizzy with the enormous thought that BV was not gone, not entirely gone. She gripped the edge of the bed, suddenly afraid of falling and knocking the table over, rolling into the rocking chair. The reek of spilled coffee was strong in her nostrils. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay," she said again louder. The shaking in her hand had subsided, so she flipped to a blank calendar page at the back of the book and scrawled "Okay" at the top of the page. Her fingers had begun wiggling again, but she raised her hand as if to wave away a question, hesitant to let the jiggling pencil at the waiting page just yet. Do I want her back, she thought, in any sense? No, not want. Not her. But in these 9 weeks I haven't really seemed to exist any more, without her paying attention, any sort of attention, to me. These days I'm hardly more than an imaginary friend of Amber next door, a frail conceit, soon to be outgrown even by her. She sighed and lowered her hand to the book. Over her OK, the pencil scribbled, "I am BV." "My God," Caroline whispered, closing her eyes. "You think I need to be told?" Her hand was involuntarily spelling it out again, breaking the pencil lead halfway through but continuing rapidly to the end, and then it went through the motions 3 more times, just scratching the paper with splintered wood. Finally her hand uncramped. She threw the pencil on the floor and scrabbled among the orange plastic prescription bottles on the table for a pen. Finding one, she wrote, "What can I do to help?" She wasn't able to add the final question mark because her hand convulsed away from her again, and wrote, "To use your body, invite me into your body." And then a moment later, "I'm sorry for everything, please." Caroline watched as the pen in her hand wrote out the same 2 lines twice more. Then she leaned back and let the pen jiggle in air until this bout, too, gradually wore off and her hand was limp. Caroline blinked tears out of her eyes, trying to believe that they were entirely caused by her already sore wrist muscles, but for BV to apologize to her. The only apologies BV had ever made while alive were qualified and impatient. "Well, I'm sorry if—" Do the dead lose their egotism wondered Caroline. Their one-time need to limit and dominate earthly households? BV had maintained Caroline as a sort of extended self, and it had resulted in isolation for the two of them, if in fact they had added up to quite as many as two during the last years. The twins had a couple of brothers out there somewhere, and at least a couple of nieces, and their mother might even still be alive at 91, but Caroline knew nothing of any of them. BV had handled all the mail. Quickly she wrote on the calendar page, "I need to know. Do you love me?" For nearly a full minute she waited, her shoulder muscles stiffening as she held the pen over the page. Then her hand flexed and wrote, "Yes." Caroline was gasping, and she couldn't see the page through her tears, but she could feel her hand scribbling the word over and over again until this spasm too eventually relaxed. Why did you have to wait, she thought, until after you had died, to tell me? But, use your body, invite me into your body. What would that mean? Would BV take control of it? Ever relinquish control? Do I, thought Caroline, care? Really? Whatever it might consist of, it would at least be a step closer to the wholeness Caroline had lost 9 weeks ago. Her hand was twitching again, and she waited until the first couple of scribbles had expended themselves in the air and then touched the pen to the page. The pen wrote, "Yes, forever." She moved her hand aside, not wanting to spoil that statement with echoes. When the pen had stilled, Caroline leaned forward and began writing, "Yes, I'll invite you," but her hand took over and finished the line with, "Exhausted more later." Exhausted? Was it strenuous for ghosts to lean out, or in, or down this far? Did BV have to brace herself against something to drive the pencil? But in fact Caroline was exhausted too. Her hand was aching, and she blew her nose on an old Kleenex, her eyes watering afresh in the menthol and eucalyptus smell of Bengay, and she lay back across the daybed and closed her eyes. A sharp knock at the front door jolted her awake, and though her glasses had fallen off and she didn't immediately know whether it was morning or evening, she realized that her fingers were wiggling, and had been for some time. She lunged forward, and with her free hand wedged the pen between her twitching right thumb and forefinger, and then the pen traveled lightly over the calendar page. The scribble was longer than the others, with a pause in the middle, and she had to rotate the book to keep the point on the page until it stopped. The knock sounded again, but Caroline called, "Just a minute," and remained hunched over the little book, waiting for the message to repeat. It didn't. Apparently, she had just barely caught the last echo, perhaps only the end of the last echo. She couldn't at all make out what she had written. Even if she'd had her glasses on, she'd have needed the lamplight, too. "Caroline?" came a call from out front. It was Amber's voice. "Coming!" Caroline stood up stiffly and hobbled to the door. When she pulled it open, she found herself squinting in noon sunlight filter through the avocado tree branches. The girl on the doorstep was wearing sweatpants and a huge t-shirt, and blinking behind her gleaming round spectacles. Her brown hair was tied up in a knot on top of her head. "Did I wake you up? I'm sorry." She was panting, as if she had run over here from next door. Caroline felt the fresh air, smelling of sun-heated stone and car exhaust, cooling her sweaty scalp. "I'm fine," she said hoarsely. "What is it?" Had she asked the girl to come over today? She couldn't recall doing it, and she was tense with impatience to get back to her pen and book. "I just," said Amber rapidly, "I liked your sister. Well, you know I did really, even though, could I have something of hers? Not like valuable to remember her by. How about her hairbrush?" "You want her hairbrush?" "If you don't mind. I just want something. I'll get it. Wait here." It would be quicker to give it to her than to propose some other keepsake, and Caroline had no special attachment to the hairbrush. Her own was a duplicate anyway. She and BV had of course had matching everything: toothbrushes, coffee cups, shoes, wristwatches.